Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our event this late afternoon. We'd like to welcome you to our event, and we'll be starting in just a couple seconds as we wait for everybody to join in. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you Happy New Year, and I hope you had a Gutes Rutsch and a super Christmas. So my name is Mary Patricia Schnuriger, and I'm the teacher trainer and rep for Switzerland, and my co-worker Lena Baldi, who you can see sitting in the snow over there, is also one of our sales reps for Switzerland as well. So we're going to be having an excellent evening with our lovely Iwonna Dubicka. I hope I'm saying that name properly there, Iwonna. If not, feel free to throw a tomato at me. So
it's great. Thank you. Iwonna Dubicka. Yeah.
Okay, super. And Iwonna has been teaching English since 1989. Good on you, mate. And is based in Barcelona. Wow. She specializes in business English and communication skills, which is extremely relevant to our topic tonight, and English for tourism, and has taught academic skills at the universities of Edinburgh and Bath in the UK. She has the RSA diploma and an MA in communication studies from Goldsmiths College, London. Iwonna is the co-author of several course books, including the best, most popular business partner book that has been written for Pearson. She enjoys walking, singing in the choir. I can't wait to hear some of the songs that Iwonna is going to sing for us tonight. Just joking. And teacher training in her free time. So we're going to have a Q&A session towards the end of the session. That's correct, Iwonna, and we're going to answer the questions that you have emailed through into us. So if we're all ready to go, with no further ado, then I shall pass you on over to Iwonna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen now with you to show my slides there. Okay, and if you'd like in the meantime in chat just to say where are you based, maybe that would be nice. You can introduce yourself to the rest of the team. Feel free to do that. So we're looking here at task-based learning and how it helps improve students' employability. I'm not a German speaker, so I will not try to pronounce this word here, but I understand it means task-based learning in German. So that's right. I've been working on Business Partner, and we'll be looking at employability skills today, what makes up employability, how we can teach employability skills, and with reference to some lessons that are communicative and task-based from Business Partner from the B1 level of Business Partner. And as you heard there, we'll be taking a Q&A at the end of the session. So first of all, we're going to talk about employability, give you a little bit of background to employability skills. And in the second part of the workshop, you'll have an opportunity to work together on some tasks, and we'll look at some materials from the B1 level. So if you can write in chat now, what kind of employability skills make our students employable? What do you understand to be an employability skill? Any ideas, please write in chat, and then we'll look at that together. Hi, Susie. Hi, Christine. Thank you. Team working skills, that's right. Any other ideas? Working in a team, collaborating in a team, that's right. Any other ideas that are exactly communication skills? Oh yeah, very good point, Adrienne. Being organized and responding to instructions. And this we would say would come under something like self-management, being able to organize yourself, organize your study notes, organize your work priorities. Oh, nice, Susie. Self-motivation skills. Okay, yeah, thinking on the spot. That's right, Mary. So we have there an example of creativity, being creative. And they're all great examples. Now, I'd like to look at this in a little bit more depth in the moment. But first of all, a possible definition. This looks a little bit long-winded, but employability skills are nothing new. They've been around for quite a while. Back in 2010, the UK Commission for Employment and Skills actually wrote a policy briefing paper, and this was their definition, that it's a set of generic skills as well as attitudinal and behavioral characteristics. Interesting to see this idea of self-motivation there that came up in the chat, because we could say that's a kind of behavioral characteristic that are essential for employees, for our students, to not just get a job, but be able to keep a job or to sustain employment, and also to progress in the workplace and get promoted or move on to further employment. So that's the kind of the general idea. And then what happened, Pearson, a couple of years ago, together with a team called the Future Skills Team, they did some research, and not just themselves, but together with educators and students and employers, and they came up with sort of 4 areas in employability. Now, the ones that will feature most probably in your lessons when you're teaching English to your students, and the ones that feature most also in books like Business Partner, are ones that we might call soft skills or personal and social capabilities. What are those? Well, these are the things that make us human. So being able to work well in a team, having communication skills, being self-motivated. These are the kind of skills that can't be replaced by a robot or a computer. They are what make us human, make us and our students more employable. Let's break it down a little bit more. So what kind of skills, if we're talking about soft skills or communication skills, as an example, what other skills do these involve, do you think? Now, I'll give you a clue. Pearson came up with about 7 areas. Can we sort of name them? I'd like to see your ideas in chat, and then I'll show you the answers that Pearson came up with. So again, please write your ideas in chat. Okay, thinking on the spot we had from before. Anything else? Yeah, nice. Being a good listener, that's right. Listening actively. Yeah, so that's, if you like, a subset of skills under the idea of communication skills. Christine, interesting. Foreign language skills. Now, I'm glad you've brought that up, because according to Pearson, that would go under another kind of umbrella name, the idea of a language skill. It's more of a hard skill that you put on your CV. But here we've got empathy, thank you, from Simone. Intercultural competences, exactly. Again, subset of skills under the broader heading of communication skills. So to give you some examples there were about 7 areas identified. And of course, under communication, we have lots more skills, but for kind of a general terms here, they came up with the idea of communication, collaboration, idea of working in a team, but also other skills like self-management, being able to organize yourself, your notes, your time, your work. Social responsibility, interestingly, comes up here, the idea of sustainability and social responsibility, leadership. And this doesn't mean just being a business leader, or it doesn't mean necessarily being a manager. Maybe you're just the team leader in a work team at work without managerial responsibilities, but people kind of follow you, or people respect you. Or you have credible ideas, critical thinking, of course, and under that we might say, well, problem solving. So a lot of these skills then have subsets, and creativity. And again, here, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily good at drawing or good at music. Your creativity also could be linked to an important skill like problem solving, coming up with original solutions, or coming up with suggestions for improvement, thinking outside the box as an engineer. So there's quite a broad understanding here of the skill of creativity, but you've all had great ideas. Now, I think it was at the end, somebody came up with this idea of language, and that for Pearson and the Future Skills team there, if you see there's a website there that you can refer to. There's also a leaflet on employability that includes all this information and more online using the Pearson online presentation tool. And the resources there in Business Partner Online, you'll find more information. But if I can give you a kind of general overview for the moment for today, if we break down these different competencies, you would see an English language is an example of a core academic competence. Yeah. So you're thinking, well, I'm an English language teacher, and now with the KV reform, I'm expected to teach employability skills. But I think we have to remember we already possess a lot of employability skills of our own. For example, being able to manage our time, our priorities, being able to work in a team when necessary, being a leader, teaching by example in the classroom. But here in an English language, of course, is not the only language. I realize in Switzerland you have many languages. So those languages would be under academic competencies together with literacy, numeracy, and digital literacy. Moving on to occupational competencies, this would be of great interest to your particular students if they're working on apprenticeship programs or doing vocational courses in Switzerland. These, of course, are the actual skills required to do a job, whether you're a nurse or a care worker, or learning to become a mechanic or a retail assistant or a sous chef. So that sort of explains itself. Now, these are the personal and social capabilities that we've mentioned earlier, like the soft skills, if you like. And various of these skills do come up in business partner at each level, and they are often in the communication skills section in lessons 3, but they also come up in other areas with the business skills lessons and also in the business workshops at the end of the book that are like case studies. So trying to remember those kind of 7 skill sets. I know there are many, many more, but we can sort of talk about that later or think about which ones might be most useful, most relevant for the students in your classroom, depending on what they're studying. And finally, fourthly, we have here, according to the Future Skills team at Pearson, this idea of career knowledge and transition skills. And you might say, okay, I'm a language teacher, I teach English, but apart from knowing about some employability skills, I'm also sure you have dealt with these kind of skills in your lessons. If you have, you can write in chat. For example, I teach at the university here. It's a school of tourism. I have taught some 16 to 18-year-olds sort of doing a vocational course, and I often teach the 4th year students doing a degree in tourism. And with them, I find they need some more practice in interview skills in English. So recently we've been working on job interviews, working on writing a cover letter, for example, and within the interview, being able to talk about personal branding. Well, what does that mean when it's at home? It means being able to sell yourself. So not just having the skills to sell a product or a service, but being able to give yourself a personal brand and come across positively in a job interview situation. So there you have it, those kind of 4 main areas. So as teachers, how can we teach employability skills? Maybe you already have them. Maybe you're familiar with some of them. Maybe you have no idea. That's okay. But any ideas? How can we teach them? If you have some ideas, please feel free to make this interactive and write your ideas in the chat box. Okay, yeah, we had some comments from before about management skills. That's right. That might be a sub-skill set for leadership skills. So let's have a look then how we can teach employability skills. So taking these kind of 7 key skills, bearing those in mind, the critical thinking, communication, self-management, etc. These are ideas that I came up with together with Margaret O'Keefe, who's a co-author and a good friend of mine here in Barcelona. By the way, it's not so sunny here in Barcelona this week. Last couple of weeks it's been quite chilly, but maybe not as cold as where you are. We can do this by illustrating skills, illustrating by example, showing videos which our students and learners love. In Business Partner, for example, there's an authentic video or a semi-scripted video at the beginning in lesson 1 of each unit. But there are also 4 videos, not one more video, but 4 videos in the communication skills lessons. And I'll show you that in a moment. I'll show you 2 of those videos shortly, very soon. And so we can illustrate the skills there. So under the big umbrella term of communication skills, we might find the skill of negotiating, specifically closing a deal, or when it comes to presentations, one aspect of giving presentations, for example, intercultural presentations. So the video is used there also by encouraging noticing the words used, the language used in the videos, or in an audio when you ask students to look at the audio script or the video script. Notice get how they're maybe making mistakes or correcting each other during an activity, using, of course, problem-based activities and task-based learning activities, very importantly, and even projects. These don't have to be very long projects. There are some mini projects that are offered at the end of each lesson one at Business Partner. And why use task-based learning? Well, I'm sure you've already done task-based lessons previously, so I'm sure this isn't new to you either, but if I can just highlight the key points here about task-based learning, is that it's real, it's realistic, it uses either role play or real play. Students can draw on their own experiences, and also they get to repeat a task. Maybe they see actors act out a situation in a video, and then they get to do the task. They often have to swap roles or repeat the task again with different information. So there's this also idea of kind of rehearsal and performance built in, or repeating a task in order to improve the second time round. So really, that's your kind of main outcome, main aim of the lesson. Not necessarily, you can give the scaffolding and the language on the way, but we're working towards an outcome. Yeah. So often when I'm lesson planning, I'm thinking about I want my students to be able to do at the end of a lesson that they couldn't do before, whether it's prioritizing a task or closing a deal or giving a short presentation about a specific topic. So very important here, as language teachers, we are in the perfect position to be able to give our students support, to give them constructive feedback, to give them the scaffolding and help with the language if they're working on a negotiation, sort of maybe correct language that's first conditional, for example, the second conditional, and also help them with the strategies that they need in order to complete these tasks. Yep. And also being able to recognize what they need to work more on, okay, in the future. So maybe they have good communication skills, but there are certain communication skills that they haven't yet developed, okay? So what kind of communicative tasks do you use then to teach employability skills? You can write your answers in chat here. Some of them I've already mentioned, like role plays, exactly, have students do presentations, as Renata correctly says. Yeah, we often do this in class, and often they're not very long presentations. I find with presentations, it's best to do kind of little, but often they're mini presentations presenting to the rest of the class, so that they lose their fear of standing up or speaking in English or just going on mic when they're in the online classroom. So role plays, real plays, talking about their job, presenting their company, that's right. And yes, Francis, very correct there, problem solving tasks, yeah, because then they can use their creativity, they can use their critical thinking as well. They can use also their communication skills when problem solving. And it makes a situation real, and it makes it realistic, also makes it kind of more memorable for them. And then they can apply those skills learned in another similar situation. So that's very important, to have this kind of metacognitive element when you are doing task-based learning activities. Make our learners think about things, and not just be able to regurgitate the second conditional because they've learned it for a test, but being able to know, I can use that kind of language in a negotiation because it will make me seem kind of less direct, for example. Okay, if we bring it back to the language. So teaching grammar and vocabulary in Business Partner, I know this is a concern for many of you with the KV reform. But I would say we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, okay? I feel quite strongly about this, and so there is grammar and vocabulary in Business Partner. There are additional activities that are online for students to do self-study tasks. There are also language boxes, functional language boxes, and there are also grammar lessons that are in the second lesson that focus on text, very short texts or audio. And also the grammar is chosen according to level. So towards the end of Business Partner B1, I have my copy of the book here. If I look at lesson 8.2, the grammar is first and second conditional. And this is aligned then with Pearson's global scale of English. Okay, so it's not over or below the level. Next, it's important to be able to teach both vocabulary and grammar in context. With vocabulary, it comes up often in the first lessons with these kind of authentic videos. As I said before, grammar comes up in the second lessons, but the main focus, if you like, of Business Partner are these communication skills that come up in the third lesson. And there are also business skills that are dealt with, kind of more hardcore business skills, if you like, that come up in the fourth lessons, as well as a variety of tasks that you will find. Okay, so we're going to look at now an example, closing a deal, which is part of negotiating. So this is a simple negotiation. If you've been working from the book, the students will be familiar with the characters. I'm throwing you a little bit in the deep end today because it is towards the end of the book, but these lessons could be standalone, and we're looking here at closing a deal in a negotiation. And how could we start talking about this in class? Well, we can say why the 2 points below important, and asking our students to comment on this. So closing a deal negotiation is about making a sale, and there are 2 things here that you need to do. Okay, to summarize what has been agreed so far. That's very important. I'd like to confirm, but also to deal with any outstanding issues. And your students will probably say, what's an outstanding issue? Well, it's a kind of problem that still needs to be solved. Or there's a block maybe in the negotiation. You can't close the deal because the client or the customer isn't happy about something still. So you can talk about this in order to start and ask for examples when students have negotiated themselves in life, either with their family, or colleagues, or workmates, classmates. And another question in the book here looks at this idea of the win-win situation that we often talk about in the business deal. What does that actually mean? Well, as you probably know, it means that both sides are happy with the outcome. There's a good result and a good outcome. It's not a win-lose situation where you have a better deal than the other side or the other party. It's when both parties or both sides come out happy with the outcome. And I would ask my students to talk about this. Why is this a good thing for a long-term business relationship? Of course, with just a one-off business negotiation, you might want a win-lose situation. But here we're talking about building a relationship with partners, with clients, or with customers, or with suppliers. And these are things to kind of think about with the students before we introduce the videos. Now I'm going to switch to the online tool, and I'm going to show you 2 videos. We don't have time to show all 4 today, but if I can just give you a little bit of background, because in the lesson, the first video always kind of describes the situation, introduces the characters, but I'll do that for you. So here on the right, we have Beata, and here in the middle, that's her boss, Daniel. And they work for a company that produces medical equipment, and they have produced a product called diab sensors. Now, the students will be familiar with this if they've seen previous videos in other units. I'm just letting you know it's a piece of equipment that helps people with diabetes to monitor their blood sugar levels. And the client is here on the left. He's from Brazil. His name is Mateo. And he is interested in this equipment, in these diab sensors. We can call them sensors for short. But there's a problem with the refrigeration. They need to be in a fridge. They need to be at a certain temperature. So Beata and Daniel have come up with a solution. But before the meeting with the client, hope you're following this. I know it's quite convoluted, but and Daniel has actually asked Beata, please don't be too technical. Don't be too technical with the client. Yeah, sort of keep the tech to a minimum. And we're going to see this meeting done in two ways. Very similar meeting, but done with two different approaches. Option A will be more technical, which is Beata's preference, and option B will be less technical and focusing on the benefits of the product for the client. And that will be, if you like, more commercial, and that's really kind of Daniel's preference. So in order to watch this, I'll just come out of my slides there and we'll go to exactly the presentation tool. I hope you can see that okay. By the way, if you do have questions, yep, feel free to ask them in chat and then we can choose the questions in at the end of the session. And if you're not familiar with Business Partner, this is what it looks like online. I'm here in the presentation tool. These are the units from B1. And as you can see, it looks at career choices. That's a whole unit. Unit 1 looks at things like design and innovation. But here we're going to communication, which is the last unit, Unit 8. And within Unit 8, we have our different lessons. First lesson 8.1, grammar 8.2, pronunciation activities. And here we go to the communication skills lesson. And I'm showing it to you, so I'm going to click on Teach in order to show it to you. Here we have a page view. I can go to the full screen to bring it out a little bit. And as you can see here, the little yellow asterisk that will take me directly to that section. You can also see from the toolbar menu, I've got options here to highlight things, to draw things. There are also more tools here. If I want the dictionary, for example, I want to customize the toolbar, I can make sure I've got the dictionary or the whiteboard there. And also very useful for me are the teaching notes. Yeah, so I'm not an expert maybe in negotiating, and so I have explanations here that I can read before the lesson with possible suggestions and answers. But we're going to go to the videos. The videos are dealt with here with comprehension questions, discussion questions, and then on the right side you will see there is functional language exercises ending up with a task. Now, Lena, just prior to the workshop starting, sent you an email with a PDF of 2 lessons, 8.3 and 8.4. And in a moment after the videos, you'll have a chance to do the task in a breakout room. So if you can have this lesson to hand, that would be great. But for now, let's watch the videos that I mentioned. Now, as we said before, there are kind of 2 approaches, so 2 options. The important thing here is that it's not that one is right and one is wrong. There are different approaches. One might be more suitable for a particular client, or it might be more appropriate in a particular situation. It depends. But we're giving here students then the opportunity to compare and contrast and discuss which works better or which one they prefer to use. So, as I said before, option A is explaining carefully, focusing on technical details, and B is explaining an idea more briefly, but focusing on the benefits for Matteo being more customer orientated. All right. So what I often do with my students is ask them to watch the video in advance. We're just going to watch part of it now once. And with my students, I don't normally show them the subtitles, but because we're only watching it once today, I will put the subtitles on for you so you can follow that better. I hope you can hear it okay. And I'll just play.
So that just about sums it up. We've agreed on the delivery dates, quantities, colour.
Yes, yes. That only leaves the same point as before. The refrigeration issue, it's still outstanding.
I think we may have a way around that problem. As I understand it, your local rules do not require the sensors to be refrigerated. But we feel that we simply can't guarantee the performance of the product without that refrigeration. Does that sum up the situation as you see it?
Exactly.
Beata has an idea. Beata.
Thanks, Daniel. So, I was doing some research into the packaging options. At the moment, we plan to send you the sensors in insulated containers that keep the sensors below 5 degrees during transport. Now, these containers will keep the temperature stable for the journey to Brazil. But once they are opened, the sensors need to go into a refrigerator.
Beata, I've told you countless times.
Hear me out. I found a supplier that produces portable refrigeration units. These can be connected to an exterior power source at a reasonable price. So, in other words, these containers are more than insulated coolers. They can also be connected to a power supply . Then they act as refrigerators.
So what you mean is that I don't need to put the sensors into refrigerators. They already come in refrigerators.
Correct?
But if we use these portable refrigerators, won't the cost go up? Let me tell you, refrigerators are not cheap.
True. And yes, the containers are a little more expensive. However, we are prepared to cover that extra cost, providing you buy enough sensors. We're confident that you'll be happy with the product and will continue buying from us.
In return, we would need you to provide the power supply when the containers arrive. You would need to plug the boxes into your power supply on arrival. And they don't use much energy, so I don't think this will be a problem for you. Here are the specifications.
This is a perfect solution. You're both geniuses.
Right, and I'll just stop there. We won't have time to watch the rest of the video, but you can see there the focus was more on the technicalities. Now, the questions that the students have here is when they're listening to the video to notice this kind of language like 5 degrees, portable, refrigerator, power supply. And if they're not sure about some of the language, or they have problems pronouncing refrigerator, you might say, well, you know, we can also say fridge, for example, in English, and I can do that by just going to the vocabulary dictionary here, and then we can also listen to fridge. Yep, we can listen then to the words again if we like, using that dictionary tool. And the question though here is basically for them to draw in pairs the sketch, and also to list the benefits. Now you can go through this with class and you can show the answers. They say, well, look at the sketch from the video, and here are 2 possible benefits that Danielle and Beata pointed out. In a moment, we'll listen to option B video, where there were more benefits listed. And when we watch the second video, I'd like you to focus on that and just write in chat some of the benefits listed. Now, this is quite technical, but your students could, or you can have a little bit of fun with this. For example, if you have the whiteboard tool and we have the draw icon, yep, you could ask students to draw this on the whiteboard in class or do it online. I can choose, for example, a blue. You can make a little bit of joke about how bad you are at drawing. So this was like one container with the sensors in the middle, and then what was it? What was different about this? It's like a portable refrigerator, isn't it? So the only thing that needs to happen when these arrive in Brazil for Mateo is that they need to be plugged in so that they carry on working. And then you can see there my very bad drawing of a plug and the power supply. But it's kind of a fun thing to do in class if you would like to do that. How can I get rid of that? Well, I can erase it all and I can just go back to the video here by clicking on the whiteboard again. Now we're going to watch the second video, which is similar but different. Okay, so we get the idea of the power supply and the refrigerator. The sensors have to be at a stable temperature. Okay, but let's concentrate now on the benefits. What are the benefits which Danielle and Beata mention to the client? Okay, I'm going to put the subtitles on again. So I just click here and we'll watch it, not right from the beginning, but from about 44 seconds in. Okay, and we'll focus on the benefits.
See it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Beata has an idea I think you might be interested in. Beata.
Thanks, Daniel. Mateo, I think you're really going to like this solution, not to mention the hidden benefits it provides. I was doing some research into the packaging options and I figured out that we can change the type of package we use. As you know, the plan right now is to use insulated containers to keep the sensors cool, but you would need to put the sensors into a refrigerator after the journey.
Beata, we've been through this over and over.
Which is why we have a new package now, one which also acts as a refrigerator. After they arrive, you simply plug in the containers into your power supply and the sensors remain cooled.
So, what you mean is that I don't need to put the sensors into refrigerators. They already come in refrigerators.
Yes.
But if we use these portable refrigerators, won't the cost go up? If there's one thing I know about refrigerators, is that they're expensive.
That's true. And yes, the containers are a little more expensive. But the supplier that Beata found is using quite interesting technology to keep the costs low. We are prepared to cover the extra cost, providing you buy enough sensors. We are confident you'll be happy with the product and will continue buying from us.
In return, we would need you to provide the power supply when the containers arrive. I think your diabetes teams will be very happy.
And there's another benefit too. Once the sensors have been used, you end up with empty refrigeration units, which you can use for other things. You know, like keeping your drinks nice and cold.
If you keep my drinks cool, you're guaranteed to keep me happy. Great solution, my friends. To sum up, you provide the containers and I provide the power supply. Let me speak to my technical team, and if it is as you say it is, we will be able to go ahead. Do you have any...
Right, and we'll have to just pause there. So in chat, feel free to write what the benefits are that Danielle and Beata mention, okay? And the other point, as language teachers, as we were listening, you probably heard quite a few examples of the first conditional. So this is something to maybe get the students to notice if they're looking at the subtitles or looking at the video script, and or language to sort of highlight whilst they're doing a communicative task before they do the main task. So that's right, exactly, Susie. So these portable fridges, they can be reused, they can be repurposed afterwards. So they're in fact sustainable, aren't there? Are there any other benefits that they pointed out that you would like? I'll give you a moment there to write in chat. And if you're not so sure, exactly to keep exactly if they use the team will be happy. So Matteo's team, the diabetes team will also be happy. That's right. It's this idea of a win-win situation. Okay, so here we see kind of more, if you like, personable communicative skills here at play. Beata's body language was actually a little bit different before. She was more technical, maybe a little bit more distant, and she had very good ideas, but you might talk about which approach the students would prefer, the more technical approach or approach that seems a bit more client friendly and kind of more customer oriented, more of a commercial approach. And we can look here at the benefits. Some of you've mentioned already. A big benefit is that Matteo does not have to pay extra for the portable units, only for the power. And as somebody's already pointed out, they can be reused and they will be happy. And the portable refrigerators are already supplied with the sensor, so you've got all the answers there. Now, the next thing then to do is to discuss and reflect with your students what they learned about closing a deal. And you can just give them a short answer. You could, if you like, play the video with a consultant. As I said, there are 4 videos in each communication skills lesson. The first one introduces the scenario. Then we have option A and option B, different communication styles. And then the 4th video is this one, the conclusions video. Now, I tend not to show this to my students, sometimes depending on the skill, if they're very interested. Here, there's actually a video of Evan Frendo, who you may know through IATEF BSIG. In other levels, there is my co-author, Margaret O'Keefe, who speaks as the consultant or the expert. And basically, they summarize the 2 approaches. And you can watch this yourselves before the lesson just to give yourself a little bit more confidence. Or you might ask the students after the class as a follow-up to watch the video. You don't necessarily have to show it in class. But basically here, Evan tells us that it's always a good idea to summarize what's been agreed. And it's also good to emphasize the benefits rather than technical details when selling an idea. And both styles can be effective. Okay, so what about the language? I hear you asking. Well, if we go out of that exercise and back to the full page view, we'll see there are lots of exercises here, but because we're a little bit pushed for time, I'm just going to show you one from the slides. We'll focus on some of the key language that's come up there. Okay, so we looked, just to remind you, we looked at option A, option B, and here we've also looked at the reflection, the conclusion. Now, the functional language includes words like this: to sum up, in return, what something means, what we've agreed, what's been agreed. And you can write the answers in chat as I go through this, if you like. What's the missing word? So that just about it up. Number 2, we've something or other on the delivery dates. That's right. Thank you, Christine, for participating. That only something or other the same point as before. Remember this, you'll be practicing with the students in class. Make sure they remember it. Does that something or other up? Oh, another phrasal verb there. The situation as you see it. So what you something or other is that I don't need to, etc. What are the missing words? Well, as you might have already guessed, here you have the keys to those words. That just about sums it up. We've agreed. That only leaves the same point as before. Does that sum up the situation? So what you mean is, which is a very nice expression for confirming, for clarifying, for checking. Yeah. So what you mean is personal and social capabilities are soft skills. Yes, that's right. Or in return, very good for negotiating. In return, we would need you to provide the power supply. So we've got an example of the second conditional within that useful phrase. Now, over to you now. Lena now is going to put you in groups of 4, about 4, for a quick communicative task. Obviously, this would take longer in the real classroom. But for training purposes today, I will ask you to do this quite quickly, to choose immediately one item that you would like to sell to each other. Now, in a group of 4, 2 of you are buyers and 2 of you are sellers. So you work together as teams within a team, and you choose an item that you're going to sell: a kayak with a crack in the side, or a bicycle that has worn tires. So there's something wrong with the product. In this case, a computer desk with a missing shelf, but you're going to point out the benefits to the client. You're going to try to sell this to the client. And remember the things to do that we've seen in the video, like summarizing the situation, dealing with an issue that's sort of problem, agreeing on a solution, summarizing benefits. When you can, I will ask you to join the breakout room, and just to bear in mind then this 7-point framework: summarizing, suggesting solutions, clarifying, agreeing on the solution, summarizing the benefits at the end before closing the deal. Okay, so now then, if you can, please. Yes, thank you very much, Mary. If you can take a quick screenshot with your camera of this task, just in case when you're in the breakout room we lose each other or you don't have the PDF to hand, that will be useful. Thanks, Mary, for reminding me to do that. So get your mobiles out, take a quick photo of this, which is the task. Okay. And you should be joining your teams shortly, just as Lena is setting that up. As soon as you can join the team, please join your team for this task. Remember to choose just one item. You just have one negotiation. And I'll show you the functional language again that we had before, if you'd like to. Oops. There we go. You can also take a photo of that. That just about sums it up. We've agreed that only leaves the same point. So what you mean is take a photo of that as well, so that you have both the task and also the functional language to hand. Of course, your students will have to have the book.
Okay, I'm putting you into breakout rooms now.
Thank you, Lena. That's great. Okay, yes. Sorry, I was just waiting for people to come back there. Great. So now I was in a team, and as I was just saying, then it's important just to point out this is towards the end of a negotiation. It's not the whole negotiation, which is why you're summarizing the situation so far. And the students can be creative about problem solving here. So remember this kind of 7-point framework to help students as well kind of plan their role play as well, or their real play, just before they do it. Now, another activity we're going to look at in a moment, Lena will put you again into breakout rooms. I think those will be sort of automatic. And this is another short task-based, very realistic task. In this lesson, this is the business skills lesson now, another lesson in 8.4, talking about priorities. Now, we did mention how this is kind of part of self-management and is important for our learners and also as teachers. Now, the students here listen, but we are not going to listen to the audio. We're just going to do the task here of thinking about labeling this matrix, where you have 4 squares or quadrants, if you like. And according to the experts, when it comes to priorities, as you might be aware, we have to prioritize things that are important and urgent, and maybe important but not urgent, and urgent but not important, and then finally the idea of something that is not important or urgent. Well, I'm sure we can all think of something maybe that's important and urgent. Maybe I have a deadline for writing, and that deadline is both important and urgent because it's for Monday. writing on the project. Maybe something that's not important or urgent is checking my WhatsApp messages, or something that's urgent but not important might be, for example, my friend who calls me with a problem and it's urgent for her, but it's not so important for me, maybe. So we can all think of these examples in our daily lives. So what you ask the learners here to do is to label these quadrants. Now, what order do they go in? Which one do you think in the lesson? They will hear the speaker and they label them according to what the speaker says. But we can just go through this rather quickly for now. Remember, these were the 4 ideas for prioritizing. Something is important, and you write it in chat if you like, but exactly important and urgent. That's the first box on the left. Important, but what was the other one? Not urgent. Okay, so and then maybe I have to write, for example, a reference letter for a student. I know it's important because the deadline is in February, so it's not quite urgent yet. Of course, sometimes tasks that are number 2 then become actually number 1 nearer the time. Urgent but not important, and not important or urgent.
Iwonna, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Were you meant to be sharing your PowerPoint?
Sorry, yes. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that. This was the thing of being in a... Yes, thank you very much for pointing that out to me. All righty, so I'll just go back to sharing my PowerPoint. Everybody, here we go. Right, now I'll go back a little bit here, but this is in the PDF that was sent to you. Okay, previously. So if I can just go back, I was talking about priorities and how things are important and urgent, important but not urgent, urgent but not important. Okay, and this is the matrix that you ask students to label. It's kind of, if you like, a square, a grid with 4 sections, and you're probably right in thinking this would be number 1 would be important but not urgent. Number 2, important and urgent. Number 2, important but not urgent. And 3, as we've seen here, number 3 would be urgent but not important. And finally, not important or urgent. So what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms again, okay? And this time you'll be again in groups of 4, but one person to come up with 4 tasks that they have. And together your partners will help you decide where they go in this matrix for prioritizing. Okay, decide on that together. If you do it for one person, that will be great, and we can have some feedback afterwards. So please, over to Lena again, who's going to put us into breakout rooms. Please join your breakout rooms and talk about the task, also how useful it is actually for your learners. Is this a kind of task you would like to do with your learners? If you want, you can take a photograph here as well of some of the language that's useful. You'll do this exercise as a functional language exercise with your students, but let's focus on these great collocations, like something is of the utmost importance, or something is a low priority, or a task is a high priority. And number 4, you're probably right in guessing this email is really urgent rather than well urgent. And something is quite important, that, for example, to have a meeting, and the security check is extremely urgent. So we're focusing on this kind of language, to try to use this language as you're doing the task. Okay, that's the key for your reference. You can take a photo of that on your phone if you would like, just to have it to hand, and refer to the PDF after the workshop. So here is the task for you to do, and Lena will be putting us into breakout rooms again. If we can just have about 2 minutes for this task, that would be great. No, all right. Well, I was just talking to Christine there and talking about her urgent and priorities, and she's going to be using business partner very soon in Eastern Switzerland with B1 and B2 plus levels, I think Christine said. So that will be a first for her. So I would say that was both important and urgent, getting to grips with the books for those classes. Anyway, thanks for sharing, Christine. Nice to meet you. So here we have then kind of quite a fun task, but also an important task, I think you'll agree, for students to do. But obviously you have more time in the class to go over those things. And it comes with a listening and an audio, so that would take much longer, and get students to swap roles and to change around and repeat the task in the real classroom. If I could just say a quick word about business workshops before we move on to the Q&A. I'm sorry, I'm running over a little bit over time, but I did want to point out to you that business workshops are wonderful for task-based learning because they are case studies that deal with realistic scenarios, but using fictional companies. They are skills-based lessons that with lots of input for listening. There are problem-solving tasks, meetings, mini presentations, business writing tasks, short writing tasks. And here in the business workshops, you get to practice both language and skills studied in the unit, but in a different context. So here we're sort of activating our students' metacognitive skills, if you like. So things that they've learned, but in a different context. So I do recommend you use them, but they are optional at the end of units. And if I can summarize to conclude for today, we've been looking at different employability skills, namely personal and social capabilities, or soft skills. We've seen that we can break them down under sort of 7 headings there. You can try to remember them after the workshop if you like. How can we teach them? Well, creating awareness, showing videos, illustrating by example, having tasks that reflect the real world of work, reflecting on performance, reflecting on our teaching when we need to sort of step in with our language teaching hats on, for giving feedback, for giving scaffolding, and what the outcome is going to be for our classes. Now there's this shift to employability skills. So rather than focusing on the conditional for a lesson, we'll be thinking of focusing on closing a deal in a negotiation, where there are opportunities to use first and second conditional, but it's not the main outcome of the lesson. It's and of course assessment, but we won't be dealing with that in today's workshop. So there's, I hope, some things for you to think about. Remember, there are 8 levels in Business Partner, and there are specific versions for the DACH region. Today we've been looking at B1, the orange cover here. There are also A2, A2 plus levels, etc. And if you have any questions about future skills, do look at the website. Also look at the resources section online, where you can find the audio scripts, video scripts. Tests are also there that you can download and use, or download and adapt and use for your classes. And there's also a leaflet talking about each of those employability skills. We've looked at 4 different skills, and specifically those soft skills that had the 7 key skills there. And you can find all that information from resources. And if you have questions, please do contact myself or Lena or Mary, who knows, who's more familiar with the KV reform that's coming up. So I'll be happy to take any questions now. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, have a great weekend too, Susie. Yes, we'll be sharing the recording later. I realize it's Friday evening, but I know a lot of you are kind of worried about the reforms that are coming up, and I do sympathize with you. Recently, at the Elder Aula, the tourism school where I worked, we also had this shift. We were told a couple of years ago, coincidentally, I was working on writing Business Partner, but we were told that the university here wants to move towards transferable skills. We have to include them in the curriculum. We have to be able to point out those learning outcomes to our learners. But and so I do empathize with you, but I think once you get into it, it'll be like duck to water. Focusing on your own employability skills, and just maybe learning to wear a different hat in the language teaching classroom, but we are certainly not throwing the baby out with the bath water. We are language specialists, yeah? And we're not to forget that. So any questions for us, Lena? Or that's right. Thank you very much for that link. If you do have a question, I'll be very happy for you to go on your microphone, and don't be shy. Even if you think it's a daft question, often other people think, well, that's actually a very useful question, as we always say to our students in class.
If I may throw in a question just at 8 minutes past the hour. Am I right in assuming that the content, the way business partner was written back in 18 and 19, was that already based on the new approach that we are about to implement here in Switzerland?
When we were writing back in 2018, 2019, towards the end of 2020, I think as well, it wasn't written with the reform in mind, but it was also written on the basis that this was already happening worldwide. As I mentioned, at my university here in Spain a couple of years back, we've seen this move also to transferable skills, employability skills in the UK, and also with businesses and in company teaching, wanting to move away a little bit from kind of language teaching and strictly kind of grammar lessons to a focus that looks at business skills and also communicative skills. So, but the GSE was certainly devised asking teachers around the world what they thought their learners needed, and it sort of pinpoints very specific language points and skills that our learners need, not just academic skills, but also what we call professional learning objectives, or PLOs, under the GSC. I hope
Thank you very much.
I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thanks
very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions there? Either for myself or for Mary?
If we have no questions coming in from, I know it can be a bit daunting to turn off the mic and have say out your questions, but don't we have some questions that came in before the sessions that we could look at quickly, Iwonna?
Ah, yes, that's right. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Yep, I've got here some questions. Is there a chapter about speaking in public? Because this teacher says that many of her students struggle when it comes to oral presentations. So yes, there are many presentations and lessons on presentations throughout all the books. Often presentation skills are sort of broken down into different areas, and you will probably find about at least 2 lessons in each level that deal with presentations, but that's certainly important. Just looking at some other questions that came in earlier. Right, so here we have a question that looks at how can English be taught without any grammar whatsoever. I think I answered that question previously in that, well, of course, language does come up. It comes up when we're referring to functional language in the boxes, or when students are doing a task. There are also grammar activities that are there for self-study outside the classroom, which is great for giving our learners more autonomy as well for their learning. And of course, as a teacher, you're always giving feedback and correcting, and also getting students to notice the grammar when they're looking at a video script or a reading text or an audio script. So yes, I think I also teach business English in companies, and I still teach some grammar along with those business skills and the communication skills. Okay, another question here. This might be best for Mary to answer. Somebody wrote, I would like to know what Pearson offers to schools and teachers involved in the reform for KV. And I would like to know whether we could use some sample materials in our reforming courses, such as WB5 HKO, I think, and WB6 HKO Unterrichten. Would you like to answer that question about the samples, Mary?
Yes, we're more than happy to support anybody who's working with this COFA reformer is going to be teaching based on the COFA reform and all the materials. We've been researching extensively what that means, and I'm working personally with some COFA reform teachers where we're mapping all of the COFA learning objectives that I've gone through all of them. I spent months doing it, and we'll be mapping all of the global scale of English learning objectives with the COFA reform learning objectives, and they really do match very well, since our global scale of English professional learning objectives were intentionally developed with transferable employability employability skills in mind. So we're ahead of the game on this one, and we're more than happy to work closely with anybody and jump in a meeting on Teams or Zoom or come to visit you at the school, and we'll be sharing our research as well and doing lots more interactive workshops throughout the year. Because on top of that, we also have the plethora of other materials that can be used, so you can tailor it to any and all of your students and schools throughout Switzerland, because there's not one size fits all here.
And another comment here, another question from a teacher who says he is interested in soft skills like communication skills, working in a team, problem solving. She changed to the new language learning environment last year. So my main question is, how can I change my lessons to more skill-based and task-based lessons? Do you offer any sample lessons, tests, or exams? So I've shown you some samples today of a skills-based lesson, the communication skills lesson, and also one sort of task from the business skills lesson, which was for prioritizing work. There are, if you want a sample unit, feel free to write to Lena or to Mary, and they will point you in the right direction. But they are some sample units downloadable from the Pearson website. And with tests and exams, there are also, as I mentioned, in resources in the online tool, as a teacher, and having the teacher's book code, you have access there to tests that you don't have to write or invent. You can download them and use them as they are, as a PDF, or you can download them as a Word document actually, and also change and adapt them. And with exams, I don't know if you want to mention something about exams there, Mary, because somebody else was asking about exams, for example, the Cambridge Linguist Skills exam, but I'm not familiar with those exams.
Yes, as we all know, I mean, for those of you who know me, I've been teaching myself since 1987, and we all know that exam teaching has been a big thing in Switzerland, and the market is opening and developing like amazingly, and there's lots of companies who want to see what skills can the students have, and or that they can actually use and implement in the workplace, and not just skills where they can choose a multiple choice, but actually communication skills that are being tested. And all of our books and courseware help students develop those communication skills and employability skills that they can use on any international language skills exam. And we have specifically at Pearson Professional English test, which is being used already in quite a few companies and schools here in Switzerland that are very well adapted for the students, and the students that I've spoken with enjoy doing them very well. So our course books work well with any internationally accepted exam.
Another question here, is Pearson planning to publish a book, or do you already have a book that would be suitable for the KV reform?
Well, we have lots of books that are already well ready for that, and we have lots of ideas where we're going to be spinning and turning all of our materials and making them unique and appropriate for each and every individual teacher and student. So these are things that we're developing and working on right now. So as they say, watch this space.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from people in the session this afternoon? Yeah, thank you, Marianne. Thank you for attending. Well, I've enjoyed speaking to you all, and I wish you the best of luck, and I hope maybe to see you again